all to the second annual ARM Developer Day. When I was trying to come up with the topic for this keynote, I thought, well, given that it's close to Christmas and given that I'm now officially old, I'm permitted to be something of a Scrooge. And I thought, well, if you're not older than about 40 years old, when you came into this sort of technology, you didn't get to see everything that came before it. And this is usually something that's left for science historians. But I thought most of your grandparents have probably told you that they had to walk to school uphill in the snow both ways. And I thought, well, I'm going to do a little bit of that today. And I'm going to give you my take on why all of this is so important and why in less than one lifetime the science and the technology has changed so radically that unless you actually step back and do a bit of reflection, you miss all of it. You don't get a really good opportunity to see where all of this stuff came from. So, in my day, when I was your age, this is a VAX 8800, and most of you have probably never even heard of digital equipment. But digital equipment used to be one of the largest manufacturers of mainframes in the world. So this machine was about the size of 2 refrigerators stacked side by side. Top speed of this particular processor, 22 megahertz. And you might think, all right, 22 megahertz, what can you do with 22 megahertz? Well, you have to remember that this was a shared system. This was shared among thousands of engineering students. And so what you would do is if you were compiling a bit of code, you would type, compile the code, file name, and then you would go have a nice lunch. You might come back about 2 or 3 hours later and hopefully your job had finished. And I noticed that some of the folks that are my age or older are nodding their heads and they understand that yes, that's the way it really was back then. So, just to give you some other specs on this machine, it had, for those of you that know what cache is, it had a level 1 cache of about 64K, which is still pretty big even by today's standards. And you could get 128 megabytes of RAM. Now, the interesting thing about this particular device is that if you were a student and you were about my age, you would think, all right, well, that's great. I'd love to have one of these. Well, that's kind of prohibitive when you look at the price tag. $650,000 is not something that anybody can even come close to affording. So universities would typically buy 2 or 3 of these things and then share them amongst the various engineering departments. This is what you have today. This is what you have access to. You've got a board that you can fit in your hand that will run circles around a machine like a VAX. We're running in speeds of 600 megahertz or higher. Plenty of memory, lots of on-chip RAM. You've got floating point units at your disposal. You don't need fans. You don't need towers to cool these things. And the really neat thing about a board like this is that it's $180. Right? So we're talking orders of magnitude cheaper, orders of magnitude more powerful, and these are things that you can just go purchase. You can take them into your dorm room. You can do all sorts of application development. So, again, I personally think that this generation is spoiled only because probably my generation was the spoiled generation for the one prior to that. So, these are the types of components that are coming around. If you look at storage capacity back then was about the size, a hard disk drive was about the size of a dishwasher. And these were the platters that you had to put in the dishwasher. So this is 200 megabytes of storage. This is nothing. You could barely put a program on it these days. This is what you have access to. You have 32 gigabytes probably hanging from your keychain, and you just don't think anything of it. Now I'm mixing apples and oranges here a little bit because these are different mediums, different types of storage technology. But nonetheless, if you need to store very large files, this is what you put it on. Now, this is where it's actually good to go back and reflect a little bit.